Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. Just quickly before I forget, I have a bunch of channels I watch, and typically when I come to your channels, I watch most of your channels out there. Normally I binge watch. I normally watch several videos at once, especially for some of the folks out there who only publish occasionally. So you might not see me for a week or a month, or it might even be longer than that. Then you'll see like 20 comments of mine right in a row. I'm kind of a binge watcher type of person. I guess I kind of do everything in binges, hence my hoarding and all my other stuff. So, but one of the places I went last night, I was over at Mustie1's channel, and he was troubleshooting a generator. And I'm an electrical engineer by trade, by occupation, and all that. And from a conceptual point of view, I well know how a gasoline-powered alternator works, right? But he went through it and actually did a video where for the slip rings, anybody just very, very quickly who's familiar with how an alternator works, you actually use the stator, the armature. Let's call it the armature. You actually use the armature, the thing that spins in the center of the generator, to generate your electrical fields or your magnetic fields. And then as that thing spins, the windings on the outside is where you take your power from. And if you stop and think about it for 30 seconds, it actually makes a lot of sense, because the magnetism is generated by very little electricity, which means you're not working your brushes very hard, right? You're not running 20 amps through brushes, right? Because you got to turn the armature, which means you can't just hardwire it, because the wires would tighten up and break, right? So you have to have brushes. So it makes a lot of sense that you run as little current through the brushes as possible. And your control circuit, which controls your voltage, right? So your voltage doesn't swing up and down with loads and so forth, is how much voltage you actually put on those slip rings, which controls your magnetic field of your armature, which controls the amount of voltage you induce in the coils around the outside. So it all makes perfect sense. But he actually showed how you could check to see if your board is no good by putting 12 volts on those slip rings and seeing the amount of voltage you put on the output. And it's a way of doing it, it's like bypassing all your safety, so to speak, right? Because you're just hitting those slide brushes with 12 volts direct. I guess you vary the voltage somewhere around 20 volts, plus or minus 2, 4, 6, whatever it is, to get the 120 and hold it constant. But really enjoyed the video. He did a good job on it. So anybody who's troubleshooting a generator, a gasoline-powered home system, he did a real nice job. Go check out his video. He put it up over the last few days. It was a generator he bought for $5. So yeah, go watch his video. So having said that and wasted 5 minutes of your time talking about it, sorry about it. Let's get to the topic at hand. You guys remember the UTV here? Basically, this is an electric EZGO. I pulled the rear end out of it. I put in a straight axle, and I put in a Honda TRX 200SX engine. Here's how you shift it. The gas pedal's hooked up. So now it's time to get to some of the other stuff. And by the other stuff, I mean it'd be nice to just reach down, turn the key. That would turn the lights on, and then turn the key and have it engage the starter and, start right up. Have something you pull out so you can set the choke. That would be really handy. And lastly, something else, so that as I'm shifting it all the way down, I think it's all the way down. Yeah. Or is it all the way up? I guess I have a double bend. Anyway, I'd like to be able to pull out the reverse interlock and get that going. So what I did is I started on the electrical system, and as I was putting together the electrical system for this, I thought to myself, you know, for me, I normally kind of do things haphazardly, and I said, you know, I should really have a plan. And then I said, you know what, the real good thing for anybody who actually wants to build one of these, so that they don't have to bring the wire harness completely over from the ATV, or if they don't have a wire harness because they bought a bare motor, like that was a bare motor off of eBay, right? You want to actually say, oh, I got to wire this piece of crap. How am I going to do it? First of all, just quickly, you got basically 4 subsystems to consider when you're wiring a UTV. You might be able to see it better where it's dark here. The first of all is the whole CDI ignition thing. I'm going to use a pit bike ignition for that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use my portable CDI box. I think I'm just going to use a pit bike ignition. So that problem solved. Then you need the engine start, accessories, lights, basically your key switch. And from that key switch, it feeds into the ignition system, because you got to be able to turn it on and off. And it also feeds into starter power, and you want to be able to use lights. And then the last system is your charging system. So what I did is, I have an example of a few different key switches here. This is a eBay, you know, $6, $8, $10 switch for a UTV, and it's got 2 positions. That's all the way on, that's 1 click on, and that's off. Well, 1 click on, normally you use that to open the circuit so that you now have spark. You no longer are shorting out the CDI, so to speak. And then 2 clicks on, that's normally where your lights are on, but I don't have the a start position for this. This is a typical motorcycle switch, which just has off and on, nothing for the starter. This is your typical tractor wire harness here, and you guys could actually use one of these, because you got off, you got on, which would be your lights on, and once again your CDI no longer short than you have for the starter, right? You got the spring switch for the starter. What I did is, all this spaghetti here, this was the wiring harness out of a Ford Escort, and I basically harvested it because I wanted wire, right? Wire. I was junking the Escort, and I figured, wow, look at all this wire underneath here. I can get a whole bunch of wire for free because I'm junking the Escort. What I did is I wired it up. The big red one here, that's power. The little green one is ground. The green and black is going to be the off that goes out to the CDI. And then once again, I got power, and this guy here, this position here, when it's active, what it does is it engages the starter, so that would be turning it all the way, and 1 click puts power to this line, which would be 12 volts for lights, or whatever else I want to power for 12 volts, a winch or whatever. So this is more or less what it looks like, right? So that's going to be the green wire, and when the thing's in the off position, right, it basically shorts the CDI to ground. And you see how this circuit is all by itself. And then the next one is 12 volts, right? 12 volts comes in, and it does one of 2 things. It's the accessory, or if you turn the key completely clockwise, that's the engine start position. So for the lights, where's my finger? There we are. For the lights, right, I did 2 lights and out to ground, because it's getting the 12 volts through the switch. Same with this, right? Engine start, it powers the coil and goes to ground, right? The 12 volts goes through the coil and ground. When that coil is energized, it puts those two contacts together, which runs the 12 volts from your battery through your starter to ground, which means now your motor's going round and round. And remember, your motor's going round and round, the CDI is no longer shorted, and theoretically your lights could be on. So, with this key switch, I'm satisfying the ignition system, right? I'm taking the short off the CDI, so now it's turned on. The engine start, right? That's this guy right here, right? And starter power, that's this other subassembly down here. The last circuit you need for UTV, assuming you want to charge the battery, is you basically start at the voltage regulator. Normally into the voltage regulator you have 2 yellow wires, 3 yellow wires, a yellow wire and a white wire, a yellow wire, white wire, and pink wire, or some combo of those colors, and they go in to your voltage regulator. Coming out of your regulator is typically a red wire, which goes to the positive on your battery, and the black wire, which goes to the negative on your battery, and it also goes to the ground of your engine and the ground on the body of your car. That's all there is to your electrical system. The best way to think about this is break it into subsystems. If you put the pit bike ignition system, right, on your engine, you just hardwire that in, forget the on and off and all that kind of stuff. You pull the string and your engine's running. You want to turn it off, but turn the choke on, and you have a running UTV with only one subsystem, right, the ignition system. If you're starting to talk engine start, accessories and stuff like that, you have to start building wire harnesses, right? And I built the wire harness here. I even put the plastic sheath around it. I used all the crimp connections and tightened them on nice. So now it's just a matter of bolting that up and putting it together and making it go. So that gives you, now you have ignition, your engine can run, you could start your engine, accessories, all that other kind of stuff. Starter power, this thing, the solenoid and so forth. That's your third electrical system. I checked to see this starting solenoid, to make it click, it uses just under 2 amps. So your wiring doesn't have to be, crazy big, right? It could be pretty small. For the side of the solenoid, right, that runs your starter, those 2 big lugs, right, one of them goes to 12 volts, the other one goes on your starter, right? Those obviously have to be enough to carry a certain amount of power. Normally, from a charging point of view, the wires should be, I would go with wires, about this gauge, which is 3 up. I don't know, what is that? Probably 16 gauge, maybe 14 gauge. I'd probably start going, 14. Even depends if the wires are short. I mean, these are pretty big. These are probably 8 gauge. But you also got, 2 foot and another foot there. You got almost 3 foot of wire, so depends how far you're going on them. So they went 8 gauge for the starting circuit. So I guess that's about it, folks. If you have any questions on this kind of stuff, please ask. But for me, even as an engineer, it just makes it easier to break it into 3 subsystems. Go check out Mustie1. He really, he's always fixing stuff. He always has good videos. Probably everybody who watches my stuff, probably most of you go out and watch his stuff. He's a really cool guy. I've met him, but he always does a good job, but he did a particularly good job on that generator video. So that's why I'm sending you guys out there. So please go check him out. I guess that's about it. So folks, Try not to get too hot. Bit of a heat wave for most of the country. Be careful with yourselves. Remember, keep your feet down, keep your head up, and please get out there and enjoy all your days. Make sure you get out there and have fun. Bye now, folks.